Greetings, people who really love grammar, all three of you. I had to redo this video because the original one was way too long and I didn't speak clearly, so I'd like to redo this and let's see what happens. I talked about the noun complement in previous videos, and I claimed that the noun complement is not really a totally new, totally contemporary structure. I said it's always been with us in the English language. I stated that it's ubiquitous, it's just about everywhere and in our sentences and literature. And I also stated that if it is hidden, for those who don't understand the noun complement and its function, it can be hidden, but it's pretty much hidden in plain sight. Okay, so those are the three things that I mentioned repeatedly. And I talked about the 6 forms. I showed the 6 forms in other videos. All right. The 3 traditional that you're familiar with, you find it in grammar books. Then I added 3. I kind of invented 3 more. So you have 6 in total. And you can find this in my previous videos. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that. And then I asked, at the end of those videos, I asked, could the relative clause, that's what you would call it, I call it a distinction phrase or a distinction clause, okay? I said, could the relative clause, traditional, be a noun complement form? Could it be form number 7? That was the question I posed, and my answer was kind of yes and kind of no, all right? So let's look at what I call the distinction phrase or distinction clause, and you would call it a relative clause. But let's look at it to see if it could be considered form number 7 of the noun complement group. Could it be the 7th one? Okay. So here's a sample sentence. The book that is blue is damaged. In other words, the book that is blue is water damaged. Somebody spilled water on it. All right. Now in this sentence here, we have what I call the distinction phrase, and you would call it a relative clause. And I call it a distinction phrase because the word that is a distinction indicator, and is blue is your predicate phrase. So if you want to call this a relative clause, it's not really a clause, it's kind of a phrase, all right? So you have your distinction phrase. But as you're looking at this and you're studying this, you notice something. You notice that this is convertible. You can convert this sentence to a different form using different terms, okay? Different sentence elements. So the converted sentence reads, the blue book is damaged. So what happened was your predicate phrase converted into just a regular adjective, a common adjective. And you see here then that your example is convertible. And you also see that in the original sentence, the distinction phrase is anaphoric, okay? It refers backwards, and the new revised version, here the word blue, all right, is cataphoric, okay? It refers in this direction. So that's what you learn from these 2 examples, all right? Then you take another example here. Let's read this. The wine that she likes the most is Italian, okay? The distinction clause is that she likes the most. And it's actually a clause in this case, right? That's your distinction indicator. She is your noun. Likes the most is your predicate phrase. And you see that you can convert this predicate phrase to this adjective. And then the she, the noun, would be converted to a possessive adjective. You see that conversion there? So you see that your distinction phrase and your distinction clause, both is what people normally call a relative clause. Both can be converted. And you see here that in this case, it's convertible, and you have the same setup. You had your initial distinction clause, which was anaphoric, and then you see that your new structure here, her favorite, is cataphoric, okay? The reference goes one way, then it goes the other. So you have two examples of what I call distinction phrases and distinction clauses, and you see how they're convertible. All right? Now, you see a beautiful thing here. In these examples that I just showed, you see that both the original and the conversion sentence behave like a noun complement. That's the whole point of asking, well, could the relative clause be noun complement number 7? Well, they both behave like a noun complement. And I don't hear anybody anywhere in the world talking about this. So I say, once again, I call them distinction phrases and clauses, and you would call it a relative clause. But the question still remains, is this structure noun complement form number 7? Is it the 7th form of a noun complement? Now, if you want to answer it no, you would say why? Well, you could say the distinction phrase or clause, which is actually the corrected, fully evolved relative clause. Okay, I corrected it. I let it evolve the whole way. All right. That distinction phrase or clause can now be considered a nearly perfect dedicated structure. In other words, you want to take the distinction phrase and clause and you want to let it alone. Enough said, done deal. All right. But if you answer this question here, can this be form number 7? All right. If you say yes, your reasoning would almost have to be this. If you say yes, I'll include that relative clause and make it a noun complement form number 7. Well, if you do that, here's what you get. If the original distinction phrase and clause, okay, the original one, here's the original, and here's the original example, okay? If the original distinction phrase and clause and its converted form behave the same way, then we must accept both of them as a noun complement. So what you get then, the result is, which I tried to say in the original video and I goofed it up, is the result is this. You actually have 8 noun complement forms in total. Whereas we started out this study several videos ago saying, okay, you know what? There's 6 noun complement forms. And you don't hear this on the internet. You'll hear the 3 traditional. You hear that all the time, all over the place. But I expanded it to 6. Okay? But actually, it could be 8. It could be 8 forms of noun complement. The 3 traditional that you're familiar with, you can find this on the internet. Ad nauseum, it's everywhere. The 4 that I introduced, I gave them to the world. And then there's possibly 2 more. Like I said, the distinction phrase or clause. Now, you would call this a relative clause. But then you have the common adjective and the adjective phrase could be considered a noun complement. It's like when you looked at your sample sentence, you said, okay, well, if you're going to call this a noun complement, why wouldn't this be one? And you say, well, here we have a noun complement in this sentence, so why wouldn't this be one? Her favorite wine. You see the adjective phrase, her favorite. It's not in the positive. It's not renaming wine. It's complimenting wine. It's telling you more about the wine. Like here, the book that is blue. Blue isn't renaming the noun book. It's complimenting. It's giving you more information. So I have to say, if we're going to include that relative clause, whatever you want to call it, you're going to end up with 8 noun complement forms. And that's what I've been trying to say. Sounds a little crazy. And here I show you that the first 5 are anaphoric. 6 is cataphoric. 7 is anaphoric, and 8 is cataphoric. You can see that in my previous videos. And there you have it. That's about it. I hope that's better than the original video. And thanks for being patient throughout all my videos, the music videos and grammar. And I'm probably going to start a new channel and do some controversial stuff, and then everybody will hate me, and that's cool. It's been that way my whole life. So thank you for being patient. Hope you learned something over the years, and good night.